What's up, NBA fans? Today's show is all about the Eastern Conference because there's been some major shakeup this offseason. Damian Lillard traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Jrue Holiday traded to the Boston Celtics. And on today's show, we're going to preview and predict how the Eastern Conference landscape will end up when we're starting the NBA playoffs up in April. And that is why you subscribe to the channel, because as the NBA season is approaching, we want to get out more content for you guys about the NBA. And if you want that, show us by hitting that sub button right now, youtube.com/chatsportstv. All right, I am Nic Rohloff of NBA Now. Let's dive into today's show. And when we look at the Eastern Conference, there's some bottom feeders and there's some heavy hitters. And when we polled our entire Chat Sports NBA team, that is where these rankings came out, the consensus, the average. Just so you guys know, this is not just me. I took part in the voting, but it's the entire Chat Sports team. And starting out with the worst team in the Eastern Conference, it is the Washington Wizards. And can you blame us? Bradley Beal era in Washington is over. It is now the Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole show, and it's not too good outside of those two guys. And we were talking in the office today, and we have a serious question for you guys. What is going to be more this year? The Washington Wizards win total or Jordan Poole points per game? I honestly will take Poole points per game. He might average 25, 26. I don't know if Washington gets there. Coming in at 14 is the Charlotte Hornets, taking the number 2 pick, Brandon Miller, in this past NBA draft. They still have LaMelo Ball, and I do think they're going to be a fun duo to watch this upcoming year, but the rest of the roster is a little bit of a disaster. You have Miles Bridges there, Gordon Hayward. It's had a lot of second-round picks in this year's draft, but I just don't love the culture they have in Portland. P.J. Washington is still there, of course, but bringing back Bridges, they still got Terry Rozier. There isn't a clear direction in Charlotte, and I don't think they're going to be very good this season. 13 is the Orlando Magic, and to be honest, I'm intrigued by Orlando this year, right? They have Paolo Banchero in his sophomore year, who I think is going to be a stud. Franz Wagner is also very good. So they have two good young players that they can build the future with. They also have a top 10 selection, Anthony Black, who I am very high on. A 6'7" guard will always be someone who intrigues me. Then you have big men like Wendell Carter Jr., and then guards as Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony. It's going to be very intriguing to see what they do this upcoming season. I think they're a team in 2 to 3 years, if they cash in some assets to add a third stud next to Banchero and Wagner, they can start making some noise in the Eastern Conference, but unfortunately, I think this is not the year for them to take that next step. Number 12, we have the Detroit Pistons, and this is a team that I was a little higher on than most. They come in at 12 on our Eastern Conference predictions, but I have them as my 9th best team in the Eastern Conference because they have a lot of depth, if you believe it, and they have a lot of young talent. Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham in the backcourt is spectacular. You have Jalen Duren, who played excellent at the center role in his rookie season. Isaiah Stewart, who they handed out a 4-year contract to. Then you have Bojan Bogdanovic on the wing, who's one of the best shooters in the NBA, and he can put up 20 a night. Then on the bench, you have good backup point guard Monty Morris, first-round pick Marcus Sasser, Killian Hayes, Alec Burks, Ausar Thompson, Joe Harris, Marvin Bagley, and James Wiseman. The Pistons' current roster is somewhat a roster that I actually really like. I think they're going to surprise some people, and I think they can maybe sneak into the play-in. This might not be the year, but I think this is a Pistons roster that is going to make some noise in the next 2 seasons. Coming in at 11 is the Chicago Bulls. This might be a surprise to some of you, but it isn't to me. I'm pretty low on Chicago this upcoming year, and when you look at their roster, it screams it should be better, but you can also understand why it's not better. Javon Carter, they signed in the offseason. They're expected to have him start at point guard. You've got Levine, one of the best isolation scorers, alongside DeMar DeRozan. Vucevic, who's the worst defensive big in the league. I don't care what other people say. Vuce is fried chicken on that defensive end. And then they got Patrick Williams at the 4. The bench is where it gets dicey, right? Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, who they handed out contracts to in the offseason. But outside of them, Alex Caruso is okay, but it gets really rough after that initial 7 and 8. And the reason why I believe that the Bulls are going to finish this bad in Eastern Conference is because I think they're going to sell at the trade deadline. If you see come next May, or excuse me, let's go just say next February, that LaVine and DeRozan are not on this Bulls roster, that wouldn't surprise me one bit. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. Who is the worst team in the Eastern Conference? We have it as the Washington Wizards, and I got to be honest, I don't know who else you're going to say other than Washington. It's pretty ugly in the DC, but let me know who you guys think in the comment section. Number 10 for us is the Indiana Pacers, which, you know what, I tell you, ever since we get to the 10th spot, there's a lot of good rosters, right? When you just take a first glance at Indiana, you've got a first-time All-Star in Tyrese Halliburton leading this team. You have a rookie in Benedict Mathurin who played very good. They signed Bruce Brown to that 2-year, $25 million, $25 per year deal. And then you have Obi Toppin and Miles Turner in the front court with guys like Buddy Hield, Ben Shepherd, Jarris Walker, a lottery pick, off the bench. Now, there are rumors of Hield potentially being on the move and maybe even TJ McConnell, but this Pacers team could make noise. I had them at my 9 spot, but Pacers at 10 on Chat Sports. Toronto Raptors fill in at the 9 spot for us here, and this one's interesting because when you just think of what they have on their actual roster, you would expect it to be much better. They did lose Fred VanVleet in free agency to the Houston Rockets. They replaced him with Dennis Schroeder. But you have OG Anunoby still, Pascal Siakam, Jakob Poeltl, Scotty Barnes. And then on the bench, you have Grady Dick, Gary Trent Jr., Thad Young, Boucher, and Precious Achiuwa. On paper, this team should be much better than it actually will be. Maybe you can accredit some of their downfall last season to Nick Nurse. Maybe you credit to the Eastern Conference just being loaded. But when you look at the Raptors on paper, they should absolutely, at bare minimum, be in the NBA play-in this upcoming year, and they should potentially be a matchup nightmare for a team because they have a lot of length and a lot of depth. Just think about OG, Scotty Barnes, and Pascal Siakam. They can all guard 2 through 5 maybe a little 1 through 5 as well. Shout out to Prize Picks, who is sponsoring today's NBA Now, and ever since Prize Picks has jumped on board, we could not be happier here at Chat Sports. You have to head over to Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America and is available to play in 31 states. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for first deposit match up to $100. I made some selections for this upcoming NBA season. I took more than on Anthony Edwards, 26 points per game per night. I think he's going to have an MVP caliber season. I took Paolo Banchero more than 21.8 points per night. And then to round out my 3 selections is Bam Adebayo, more than 9.3 rebounds per game. I've had so much fun testing my skills this football season, and as basketball season turns and is right here, I could not be more excited. If you have similar skills to mine, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps with the most exciting daily fantasy app on the planet. Go to prizepicks.com and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. One more time, prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Shout out Prize Picks for sponsoring today's show. Getting that 8 seed for us here at Chat Sports is the Atlanta Hawks, who had a decent 2022-23, right? Like, they ended up getting the 7 seed after winning a play-in game against the Miami Heat and took the Boston Celtics to 6 games, which no one really expected. You have Trae Young and DeJounte Murray returning to this backcourt, which has a lot of potential as they grow together. And then Sadiq Bey and DeAndre Hunter playing those 2 wing spots and Clint Capella manning the middle. But the part I like about the Atlanta Hawks personally is their bench. You have experience in shooting at that guards position in the bench with Patty Mills, also Bogdan Bogdanovic. You have A.J. Griffin taking a next step. Maybe Wesley Matthews comes into play. And a second-round pick that I really like is Muhammad Gay out of Washington State. I think he's going to be a sneaky good rotation player for the Hawks this year. And Onyeka Okongwu is also someone who could take a next step, a former lottery pick. He can maybe push Clint Capella for that starting center spot as we go deeper into this NBA season. That 7 spot, we're handing it to the Brooklyn Nets. And they were a divisive team amongst us here at Chat Sports. Some people had them as high as 6, maybe even 5. Some people had them at the 10 spot. And when you look at what their roster has, you're really anticipating some of their guys to take that next step, right? Spencer Dinwiddie, we know what he is right now. He's a scoring guard who can't defend but can give you some buckets. But we're looking at Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson to take that next step. Bridges, we expect him to be someone who averages 25 points per night this upcoming year while playing some of the best wing defense in the league. He can cement himself as a top 10 two-way player in the league this upcoming year. He's going to finally be a number 1 option. And last year when he split time being a 3rd option in Phoenix and a number 1 on Brooklyn, he averaged 20 a night. I wouldn't be surprised if that takes its next step to 25 this year. And when you look at their bench, they have a lot of nice pieces as well. Dennis Smith Jr., who I think is a really good backup point guard who can defend in this league. Ben Simmons, is he finally going to provide something? Lonnie Walker, Cam Thomas, Royce O'Neal, Clowney, who they took in the first round out of Alabama. Very intriguing roster in Brooklyn. I'm fascinated to see how they play out this upcoming season. Number 6 is the Miami Heat, someone who obviously was in the thick of things for Damian Lillard, and if they did make that move for Dame, you probably would see them at the number 1 spot here in the Eastern Conference predictions. But their current roster looks like this. They're probably going to rock with Kyle Lowry and Tyler Hero on opening night in the backcourt. That power forward position is something up in the air. Could be Caleb Martin, who played well in the postseason last year. Could be Kevin Love. But Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo is the best duo in the Eastern Conference over the last 4 seasons. Might not be anymore with the addition of Dame to the East paired up with Giannis, but Butler and Bam bringing the Heat to the finals in 2 of the last 4 seasons, Eastern Conference finals in 3 of the last 4 seasons. This is a team, even though a lot of people are down on them after missing out on Damian Lillard, you cannot count them out because they still have Bam, Jimmy, Eric Spoelstra, and Pat Riley. They're most likely going to still be competitive in the Eastern Conference. We're going to reveal our top 5 seeds coming up in a bit, but I want you guys to call your shot right now. Who's going to be the number 1 seed in the East this year? All signs point to either Boston or Milwaukee. Give me your thoughts in the comment section. Coming in at number 5 is the Philadelphia 76ers, and they are another team that is very much up in the air because we don't know the status of their roster. James Harden, who has been holding out, he requested a trade, reportedly wants to play in Los Angeles with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Well, apparently his holdout is over, and he's returning to the 76ers training camp later today and will be playing maybe in the preseason. Who knows what is going to happen with James Harden? And this is the problem with Philadelphia. It clouds the 76ers roster and clouds their entire season. Are we going to see the beard manning the point guard, or is Tyrese Maxey going to take that step? And if they do trade James Harden, what are they going to get in return? Are they going to get assets that they can play next to Embiid and Maxey right now, or are they going to have to focus their return on future first-round picks? If they trade Harden and don't get anything to help their current roster, their team might be in the 6-7 range. But if they get valuable assets that can play with Embiid now, or they keep Harden, they'll easily be a top 5 team in the Eastern Conference because when you have the reigning MVP on your squad and Joel Embiid, you're always going to be competitive. Moving on, and with the 4th seed, we had the New York Knicks grabbing that spot. They had an unbelievable season last year out of nowhere, got that 5 spot and beat the Cleveland Cavaliers in the first round. And you expect Jalen Brunson to take the next step. Not a lot of big moves for New York this offseason, very minimal moves, adding Dante DiVincenzo. They have Josh Hart for a full season, Emmanuel Quickley, who almost won 6th Man of the Year last year. Maybe RJ Barrett takes that next step, but I think we already know what Julius Randle is going to be. And that's the thing that I have with the New York Knicks. I had them getting the 5th seed this year. They end up in the 4th slot. But my question is, where does the upside come from? Do you expect RJ to take a next leap? Is it Quentin Grimes or is it Jalen Brunson? I don't think you're going to get much better seasons from Julius Randle, and I am nervous for the Knicks' sake that Jalen Brunson has already played his best basketball. I'm curious to see how they're going to be able to perform and maybe rise above their current expectations in New York. Number 3 is a little bit of a shocker maybe, and it is the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team that I think is going to take a big leap this upcoming season. Not crazy moves this offseason. They added Max Strus in a sign-and-trade with Miami. But what I think is going to lead to them getting that third seed is a next step from Evan Mobley. I think he becomes more assertive in the Cavaliers' offense. He gets a better three-point game, right? And then you have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. They take another step. And what I think is the biggest key with them is that they're going to get more chemistry. They were thrusted on a late trade, September 1st to be exact, with Donovan Mitchell going to Cleveland, but now they have a full offseason. They have a full season under their belts working together, and I do think they'll be able to take that next step. The one problem in Cleveland is that this might be Donovan Mitchell's last season. He has yet to sign an extension, and I don't think he is going to sign an extension with the Cavaliers, which leaves his situation very cloudy. He could easily leave or request a trade next offseason or wait till he's an unrestricted free agent in the 2025 offseason. But either way, this Cavs roster is very talented, and with a full year playing together underneath themselves, adding a shooter in Max Strus, I think they're going to take a big step and be the third seed in the Eastern Conference. We have the Boston Celtics ending up being the 2 seed, which means the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be our overall 1 seed. But when you think about these two teams, they have added a lot, right? Jrue Holiday comes over to Boston. Kristaps Porzingis comes over to Boston. And if I had to give my best bet on the best starting lineup in the NBA, not the Eastern Conference, the NBA, I think it's the Celtics. Having Jrue Holiday and Jaylen Brown in the backcourt to go alongside Jayson Tatum at the 3 spot, and then Porzingis and Al Horford being your 4-5 combo. The only reason why we here at Chat Sports think they're going to be the 2 seed rather than the 1 is that they do not have a lot of depth. They have a great 6th man in Derek White, maybe the best 6th man in the entire NBA. But you look beyond Derek White. Who's going to be their 7th, 8th guy? Are you going to expect O'Shea Brissett to take a next step? Peyton Pritchard, their wing depth is non-existent. Sam Hauser, Svi Mykhailiuk, and you talk about depth at the center position. Luke Cornett is their backup center. That is a massive issue. Say Al Horford or Porzingis goes down, the Celtics are very much going to be in trouble. But in fantasy land where they are perfect and no one gets hurt, the Celtics have the best starting 5 in the NBA. We mentioned Milwaukee. It is no shame or no doubt that they are the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference in our eyes. You add a 32.2 point per game scorer in Damian Lillard, someone who is a top 5 point guard in the NBA and a top 20 player as well. You create immediately the best duo in the association with Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. You have Chris Middleton is there as well, and Brook Lopez, who with age is finding like some nice wine. He is just getting better with age. The only question we have about the Bucks is Pat Connaughton being that starting 2 guard. You still have Jay Crowder, Andre Jackson Jr., who they drafted out of UConn, and Bobby Portis off the bench. So I believe in Milwaukee's bench more than I believe in Boston's, but the starting lineup for Boston is better than Milwaukee. Connaughton scares me starting at that 2 spot. He can light it up a little bit from beyond the arc, but not anything too crazy. I will say this, though, about the Eastern Conference. It feels like we are on a crash course on the Eastern Conference Finals matchup between Milwaukee and Boston, right? Like, unless major injuries happen, I don't expect a Heat playoff run. I don't expect the Knicks roster to beat the Boston Celtics or the Milwaukee Bucks in 7 games. I don't think the Cavs could do it either. These 2 rosters, barring injury, are the 2 best in the NBA without a doubt. And I think we could just fast forward right now and say, play 7 games, Milwaukee and Boston. You're right to battle maybe the Nuggets, maybe the Suns in the NBA Finals. But don't hold back on us. We just projected the top 15 for the Eastern Conference this upcoming year. I want you to rate our Eastern Conference prediction, scale it 1 to 10. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for tuning in throughout the entire video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we're bringing more and more NBA content for you guys as the season is ramping up. And we're going to do a Western Conference prediction as well next week. So if you want to be on the lookout for that, don't only just subscribe, but turn on those notifications.